Good evening and welcome to the Same Old Arsenal podcast. We're back. I hope you're all keeping safe during lockdown. And seeing as we're all missing football, I thought we'd do something tonight that was a little bit different. I've invited some guests on that are rival fans, and we're going to discuss which team was the best that won the title. I'm going to be sticking up for Arsenal Invincibles. We have a Man City fan, a Chelsea fan, and a Man United fan. First of all, you will recognise this Man City fan very much so because he's been on a few times. It's Mr. Ray. How are you, Ray?
I'm all right, mate. I'm very well. Why not Liverpool fan? Why not Liverpool fan?
Do you know what? That's a great one, man. That's a great one. Maybe in a couple of years' time when they actually get a league title behind them, eh? That's a sore subject for some, I suppose. Mr. Chelsea fan, Mr. Matt, you'll recognise him too. How you doing, mate?
Hello, guys. Yeah, not too bad. Loving the lockdown, just missing football, boxing. Kids drive me crazy, putting on weight, desperate for a haircut. Same old.
Yeah, man, you know, everyone's the same, man. And last but not least, our Man United fan, Mr. Josh Levitt. Josh, how you doing, bro?
How's it going? Potts, right, mate?
Yeah, all good, boys. Listen, boys, we're gonna talk a little bit about the title as such, because this year has been a bit of a disaster for football. So what we do is, I thought maybe go a little bit retro and see what we can talk about in terms of our teams winning the title. So I wanted to start off right where it began in the 90s, because Josh, we're going to come to you first. In the 90s, it must have been easy for you growing up, mate, because Man United won absolutely everything. And I remember as an Arsenal fan growing up, hating Manchester United fans, Man United players, Alex Ferguson. And that was really because you were so good. And I think in terms of your treble winning season in 99, that to me is the best Man United side that I saw. And a lot of people would argue that 07-08 was as good, if not better, because you had Ronaldo and you had Vidic and Ferdinand. But for me, that 99 treble winning side is yet to be beaten. Would you agree or disagree with that, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, throughout my whole time Sport United, there's not been a team like the treble winning team. You just look at the depth in the squad we had. You know, the four strikers we had up front. We haven't had that in a while. I think the 08 team. I mean, it was funny actually. Today I found the old DVD of that double winning season, and we did have some really great players. But I think just the treble winning team just had depth everywhere. Every position you could just like pick in and out, kind of like City now, and a bit like Liverpool now. I think, yeah, it's definitely got to be our best squad, best team.
I think the amount of leaders you had in that team as well, not just talking about Roy Keane, you had the class of 92 come through and they all knew each other so well. It was a balanced squad. That midfield is probably, for me, the best midfield there's probably seen as a midfield with Keane, Scholes, Giggs and Beckham. That is just world class in every position. And I think that you talk about depth, you still had the likes of Nicky Butt coming on when Keane or Scholes either got an injury or a suspension, and them too. So you had some strength and depth in that, but you also had a partnership in New York and Cole, which just dominated the Premier League.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, them two at the time, I think they were probably our, when fit, our best strike partnership. But if one of them was injured or you want to change up, you had Sheringham, you had Solskjaer, and they're not bad, replacements to come on, and they all sort of linked up well as well, and like the creativity we had in midfield, with Beckham, Scholes, Giggs, and Keane just being solid there as well. It was just really good midfield. I think we haven't had that kind of midfield balance in sort of like the last sort of 15, 20 years. So,
I mean, for me, in the 90s, we kind of, until Arsene Wenger come along, we were always looking up to United, and then of course 97, 98, we did the double. And I think it shocked most of the Man United fans because they just thought, who is Arsene Wenger and what is this Arsenal side about? And I remember having some great fights with Keane and Vieira days. But that 99 team after it was like, wow, we just won the double. They've done even more now and gone and won that treble. Ray, I'll move it on to yourself with this team, because for you, it's a bit different with being a City fan back then, looking up at United to where things have swapped around now. That team were special, weren't they, in 1999?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that midfield. That's what I remember from that team. I used to say to myself, a team could try and man-mark Beckham or something. But if you're man-marking Beckham, you've got Giggs free. All right, so you can get someone on him. And then you've got Scholes free. Teams didn't have enough players. And sometimes you'd look at it and you thought, United must have at least 12 players on the pitch because he's all free. It was a mental. And yeah, you know, at least you were 200 miles away in London, you know, hating the United fans. But we were there. We were, you know, you go to, well, I wasn't going to school then, but I was working. But you know, all my mates, most of them were United or Liverpool fans. So you're always getting it in the neck. 90s, I mean, we were poor. I mean, 99, I mean, United were winning the treble. We were in the second division, so or third division as it was then. But you know, so it was a tough time growing up and going through that. But they were awesome, you know, and they fought to the end, as you could see with that European Cup, Champions League, whatever. And they were just an incredible side. I just feel that they're not anymore.
Had to get that one in there at the end. I mean, Matt, you're lucky enough. I mean, listen, me and Ray can't boast about it, but you boys at the bottom can. The Champions League is what everybody wants to win, and Chelsea have done that. And you know how hard that was to win all three. That is pretty special, and that is something that I don't think we'll see often in our lifetime of football.
No, I don't. Not in the English league, anyway. I can't really add too much on what the fellas have already said. You know, other than they've done a lot for that era. That Man United team done a lot for the England team as well, because you know, you look at some of the names there, a lot of English names. It's built on an English backbone, and it was, you know, brilliant class of players. That majority of them went on to play to a really old age. You know, I remember Sheringham coming over to Colchester United and playing a season. I think he got sent off his first game, but you know, great team. You know, hats off to it. You know, we'll never hear the end of it. A bit like the old Arsenal Invincibles thing. We'll never hear the end of we done the treble and no one's done it. So perhaps one day someone else will, and that sort of gloating will stop. But great team, and it was a time where, you know, we laugh and joke about, oh, they're not as good anymore. But it was at a time when you think, oh, who have we got at the weekend? Oh, we got United. And you used to really be like, you know, I'm not looking forward to playing them because they're just unreal, you know. And nowadays it's just slightly different, but you know, they can still put the ball about. But yeah, just a quality team, and you know, every time that ball went to Scholes and there was a bit of space, you were just hoping he weren't going to ping it.
Yeah. Listen, it was a team that we all feared. And before we move on to another slide, Josh, I just want to come back to you and finish up on this, because for me, we all feared you playing you. But did you fear anyone? Was there anyone that you feared when Man United were coming up against any team in '99? Because for me, you were the best team by far.
Yeah, I mean, I was always your Arsenal. I think that was the main big game back then. It was always going to be, you know, Liverpool as well. But yeah, I just remember it being Arsenal, really, sort of around that time. It was always, it's nothing like it is now, but the rivalry we had, you know, the battles, the games, you know, I think probably, yeah, I'd definitely say Arsenal was the team back then, I think.
Yeah, fair one. I think it was kind of Arsenal United when I was growing up, and I miss those days, man. I miss those Keenan Vieira days. I really do, and I don't think we're going to get that back. You look at Man United and Arsenal playing now, and I mean, the captains are nowhere near as good, but they're just so nice to each other in the tunnel, aren't they? All hugging each other and high-fiving each other. Yeah. It's like you're about to go to war with these people.
Imagine VAR back then.
Yeah.
Wenger got friendly in the end, you know, that kind of rivalry sort of disappeared, and there was more of a bit of respect for each other. But yeah, definitely they were that was the time. I used to just love watching football, especially those games.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, luckily after that, come our time, and we had a couple of times we had a double winning season in 01-02, ended up with the French connection, and then of course we went unbeaten in 03-04, and that to me is the reason why I believe that is the best side that we will see in the Premier League, because treble was fantastic. City have had unbelievable sides. Even Liverpool this season have had a fantastic side, although they haven't won it. And Chelsea under Jose, and of course under other managers as well, was superb too. But for me, the one thing that's different, we did not lose our game, and that is ridiculous. And Liverpool have proved how hard it is. Liverpool did it last season, and City still beat them. It just proves how hard it is to go unbeaten. And people can sit there and say that it's easier back then to beat the likes of Portsmouth and Middlesbrough and stuff like that. But for me, I'm not so sure that it was. I think that otherwise people would have been getting a lot closer to us. I think it was so difficult And our team back then, for me, was full of athletes, full of quality, full of physical presence. And for me, it had leaders, which we haven't had since Highbury days, in my opinion, that we've lacked the Vieira, the Campbell, we've lacked Henry. You're always going to miss Bergkamp, but we had technical ability in there as well with Perez, with Lundberg. Ashley Cole was one of the best left backs in the world. Lauren was a really underrated right back. Campbell and Torre was a partnership that really did destroy strikers. And of course, Jens Lehmann played every single minute of the unbeaten season. So for me, I think we had an unbelievable midfield also, with Patrick Vieira and Gilberto, that just were two pistons in midfield. And I think when you look at it, that team, everybody feared. And you know, Josh, you were saying about Arsenal being feared. You feared Arsenal in the 98-99 season. I think everybody looked in that tunnel and thought, standing up against these boys, this is going to be tough. You've got Vieira, Gilberto, Henry, Campbell, Torre, Lauren. These are absolute monsters that no one wants to come up against. And that's where we kind of differentiated when we went to the Emirates. We just went for more technical, lightweight players, and we missed that still. And I think for me, without a doubt, this was the reason why I'll always look at this unbeaten side as the best that's ever won the Premier League. Ray, what do you make of that?
Well, if we all agree with you, the game's over straight away, isn't it? So I'm going to disagree. It was a great side. I mean, and I have to look back at that side because that's when I used to watch a lot of football. And Thierry Henry, not the French connection, Vieira and Petit. The names, I can still remember. I can't remember much now in my old age, but I can still remember Perez and, you mentioned Lauren, you're dead right, and people forget about him and Campbell. It was a phenomenal team. But I've got to throw a button. You look, I'm just looking at that, just pulling up the table for when you were champions, 90 points. Yes, it is very hard not to lose a game because no one else has managed to do it. Liverpool, regardless of how awesome they were last season, this season, they lost a game each season. That Chelsea team from, was it 2005? They lost a game as well. So it's almost impossible, it feels, to go through a season without losing. But I look also at the games you won. You only won 26. So you drew 12 games. And there's a feeling that towards the end, you were just happy not to lose. That was it because you wanted that Invincibles tag. And then if I look down the table as well, you looked at somewhere like fifth spot that season was only 56 points. And you were miles ahead of them. And I don't know how much of a challenge there was if fifth place is getting something like 56 points. When United won that treble, fifth spot was only one with, they had 57 points. So, I'm going to say City. When City won it, Chelsea were fifth with 70 points. So I just feel there were more, even though City won it by a lot, there was a lot more competition at the top of the table, a lot more than there was in some of the other seasons. But yeah, you can't take away from what Arsenal did, and even that Chelsea. When I'm just looking at theirs as well, 58 points was Liverpool in fifth. So for me, that I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about City, but I think that also makes a difference as to how competitive the league was back then, and how many games you actually won. Because 26 is still a lot of games, but compared to what City and Liverpool have done, I would say only 26 wins.
Okay. Fair comment and fair debate, to be honest. Matt, I'm going to throw it to you because obviously Chelsea had just come in with a Roman Abramovich when Arsenal went unbeaten. And from that point, Chelsea started to build their team and look to compete. But you, looking at the top, we were the ones to beat. We were the champions. Everybody wanted to beat Arsenal. Where do you sit on this? Because Manchester United's treble winning side lost 3 games, drew 13 games. We won 26, drew 12, lost none. Where do you stand on Arsenal's Invincibles? Do they deserve the credit that they get, or were they overrated in your opinion?
Well, the next season, we won the league, didn't we? By 12 points. And people were very quick to jump on the Invincibles thing. Yeah, impressive. It obviously is because no one else has done it. But we only lost the one game, 1-0 against City away, I believe it was. And, and that was a game which we was expected to win. That weren't, it wasn't. It was a one-off, if you like. We had, what was it? I've got some notes here. 25 clean sheets And also another thing to remember is that we only conceded 15 goals all season. Do you know, that's ridiculous. Do you know, imagine that now, if someone done that now. Do you know, I know Liverpool have done all right with the part season, but, do you know, if that team was so good, then why didn't it continue into the next year? And a 12-point deficit, even sort of back then, is still quite a big deficit between first and second. So the only way I can really take any light off of that Invincibles is that the Invincibles only lasted one season, and the next season it wasn't really too close. And your Invincible season was almost equalled, but albeit one goal stopped it.
I think the thing is with the Invincibles as well is the fact that people believe. I mean, they broke up way too early for me. They broke up way too early, and they had a couple of seasons previous to this. We should have won the league the season before. We were, I think, 8 or maybe even 11 points ahead of Man United at that time. We went unbeaten. We went unbeaten a season after, but before that, we obviously done a double in 01-02, which for me, some even say. I mean, I spoke to Kenny Ken the other day. He was saying that he believes that was a better team than the unbeaten season, but will not get the credit because they lost the games. That season went unbeaten away from home. That team, absolutely outstanding achievement in my opinion as well to that double season. But that Invincibles just had something about it. And what made the Invincibles for me even better was the fact that we just lost to Man United in the FA Cup, and then Wayne Bridge goal, which I'll never forget, Highbury, which jumped us out of the Champions League. Then we had Liverpool at home, and we went 2-1 down, 1-0 down, 2-1 down, and I thought, here we go, now we're going to lose this game, and then that's the league over as well. And obviously Thierry, Bergkamp, Vieira turned it on. Then we go and win 4-2, and then from there we then go 2 days later to Newcastle, and then don't lose there either. That to me was like, okay, you've picked yourself up, you've licked your wounds, and you're ready to go again, and you don't care. It doesn't matter if you don't lose a game, you're going to win the league. Just go unbeaten. And we could have given up and gone, just put the kids out now. We've won it. Put the kids out. We won the league at White Hart Lane, by the way. And then we could put the kids out, and then we lose the rest of the games. Doesn't matter, but we didn't. We stuck with it, and that to me shows great determination and mental strength. Josh, where do you stand on this, mate? With Arsenal's Invincibles?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to back the treble-winning team over you because I'm a United fan. But yeah, no, they're a great team, mate. I used to just love watching the highlights of Bergkamp, Omri, Lundberg. Again, you just had so many talented players in each position. From the goalkeeper, your back four, your midfield, and your strikers. And it was, back then I probably wouldn't admit it, but it was great watching that Arsenal team. And I mean, what they did, it just shows, like you said, Liverpool, were close to doing it this year at a point, but just shows you how hard it is, especially with the other cup runs and other games you have to take into account. So, and will someone do it again? I don't know if they will.
It's a strange one as well because a lot of fans don't quite understand the meaning of it, because a lot of people would say, I want the Champions League over the Invincibles. And it's a really hard one for me because the Invincibles is something that we're all proud of, but we won a Champions League. Do you know what I mean? And if you ask a footballer, do they want to win the league going unbeaten, or do they want to win the league, lose a couple of games, and then win the Champions League? They want to win the league and the Champions League. So it doesn't matter. You don't turn the medal over and it says you didn't lose a game. The only thing we've got to show from it is a golden trophy, which no one else will get unless they go unbeaten. So that for me is the reasons why I thought the team had great strength in depth. You look at Kanu, Wiltord, Parla, Edu, Keown was still there. We had great players upcoming like Gael Clichy, Van Persie, Cesc Fabregas were coming through. So exceptional talented side. But then, of course, we move on to Chelsea, Matt. And, I mean, I know the money kind of come with you, but Jose decided to absolutely terrorise the Premier League for a good 2-3 years. And I still think that's the best Chelsea side that I've seen. I've seen great Chelsea sides under Conte, Ancelotti, but even Hiddink did well with you guys, when he came in and did a job. But for me, 100% Jose Mourinho, when he first come to Chelsea, it was, in my opinion, the best team. And I don't think anybody got near him. I thought you were exceptional.
Yeah, that was Jose in his prime. I'm not bitter about him leaving the team or anything like that. He's jumped from a few teams now. He seems to get progressively a bit more moody. The arrogance has sort of gone now. It was a bit new and novel when he first come. I think people love to hate him. As much as they said they didn't like him, he was funny. And he could back it up. Simple as, okay, not the prettiest of football at time, but he weren't scared at half time to make 3 substitutions. because it weren't working. You know, not a lot of managers would do that, and it used to work. You know, I used to go to the home games, and you'd never walk in and go, "Oh, I wonder what team is going to put out," or "We might struggle today." It was just, "I wonder how many we're going to win by." You know, I think that season, I don't think we won every single game at home, but we won most. And it was just, you know, you go there and it'd be a pleasure to watch us banging goals. And even if you went 1-0 down, there was none of this, "Oh no, we're 1-0 down." We never come back from 1-0 down. It was just like, "Oh, it doesn't matter. They've got a goal. We'll get a couple." You know, it was just nice to watch, you know, and all good things come to an end, obviously. That being with the manager and the team, you know, but the team at the time, yeah, it was money, but when you look at it in comparison to today's game, it wasn't that much. You know, we were just one of the first to sort of come to the headlines with it, and you know, put our hands a bit deeper in our pocket than other people have. But some of the players that we did have there, again, were good English players as well. Joe Cole in his prime, also doing a bit for England.
Great player.
We had Gallas playing out of position on the left wing, but still doing great. Before he went to you guys, I believe, season after.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, year after. Yeah,
and then we got Ashley Cole.
You got Ashley Cole. Yeah.
The defence was, you know, it speaks for itself. The stat we just spoke about, conceding 15 goals, even with Gallas playing out of position, JT in his prime in the middle, Ferreira and Carvalho. You know, Ferreira, one of those players that, you know, didn't have that many plaudits. You know, he just got on with his game. Bit like I compare him nowadays to Azpilicueta. You know, not in the front of every headline, don't get himself in trouble, not regularly sent off or anything like that, but put in a good performance.
True pro, yeah.
When you had, what I say about Joe Cole, when Joe Cole weren't firing all cylinders, you had Damien Duff, you know, and people forget the name Damien Duff, but that season, him and I and Robin switching wings and running up and down them wings with the wing backs pushing forward, because 4-3-3 weren't done as much back then. So, you know, they would push in and allow the wing backs to get up, and it's just an overload system and people couldn't cope. And if it did all go wrong, you've got Makaleli sitting there. You know, not many players can boast that they've got a position named after him. You know, what a class player he was. Obviously, Frank Lampard in the middle as well in his prime, linking up well with JT at the back, but also Didier Drogba up front. This, you know, speaks for himself. Not necessarily at his greatest then, because that season Lampard was our top goal scorer. And this was the time where Drogba was going through the stage of being on the floor for 70 minutes and playing for 20 and getting booed by his own fans on occasion, because we was fed up of it as well, to developing into that machine that he was, you know. But if Drogba weren't playing well, then you had Idiger Johnson as well, who you could bring on, who, again, was another class player. And I've been watching...
Underrated, mate. Very underrated player.
Oh, extremely. You know, I've been watching reruns and that, and there's games you forget, you know, like the Boltons and stuff like that. And I've been watching reruns and, you know, just class. And the team just worked well. There wasn't loads of depth, but we didn't need it because the plan A worked every time. Apart from City away.
And I've got to bring this comment up because I totally agree. Lee Farrell, shout out to Lee. Thanks for watching again, bro. Hope you're well, mate. Hope you're keeping safe. As an Arsenal fan, I hated Drogba. And the reason I hated Drogba wasn't because I didn't rate him. It was because it was the opposite. I hated playing against him because he just used to score against Arsenal every weekend that we played. And it was just an absolute monster and a goal machine. And I think that it wasn't just the fact that you mentioned it, Matt, that he's on the floor all the time. He's a strong boy. He is a strong lad, and he could dominate defenses and just, for me, was just extreme pace and power, great finishing ability, and some kind of a striker that people don't really put up there in the greatest ever. But he's got to be mentioned for me because I thought he was exceptional for Chelsea. I really did.
Yeah, no, he got there in the end. You know, when he was bought, there was criticism about purchasing him and how much was paid, and then he turned up, and yeah, he was diving about trying to, you know, win fouls, and then just turn it on. He could score with his head, volley, flick it over his head, hold the ball up. You know, if you take a pinch from all the best players and put it on him, he could do a bit of everything. You know, he could put a free kick in. You know, he could dive well as well.
Yeah, yeah, man, you're not wrong there. Bro. You're not wrong there. Ray, we'll come to you because it must really frustrate you when a team come out of nowhere, spend loads of money, and then go right to the top. That must really frustrate you.
I'll tell you what, that Russian money, Russian money. Now, I like the way Chelsea. I actually like the way Chelsea did it because the league for me was basically quite boring. Arsenal and Man United, that were it. No one else really was competing at the time. And that was one of my comments, that it was too easy. No one was competing with them. Chelsea came from nowhere and they shook it up. And for that, I was quite pleased because obviously I hate United. Weren't too bothered. I weren't too bothered about Arsenal. I was a little bit of a soft spot for some of the French players and stuff, and I was just glad they were competing with United. But to have Chelsea coming along so quickly and also competing and beating United and winning trophies, on one hand was very good, and you just thought, well, it's like when we got the money 12 years ago, they got lucky. That's it. Same as we got lucky. But it's not just having the money. You've got to get the right personnel in. You've got to get the right manager in. And with Jose, he was a breath of fresh air to the Premier League, and he shook it up as well. So I've got to say that. I mean, that Chelsea team was almost did everything because 95 points is a heck of a lot of points. Losing one game, almost invincible, almost Centurions. I mean, winning 29 games, it was fantastic, and it was the thing where when you play Chelsea, it was like, can anybody score against them? 15 goals in 38 games is ridiculous. It's even now I can't believe it. It was ridiculous, and I still can't believe that we were the only ones that beat them in the whole season. But it was an immense performance. 29 wins, and I look at that as well because Arsenal got 26, Chelsea got 29. It was just that one defeat, and if it wasn't for that, honestly, we'd still talk about the Invincibles, but we'd talk about Chelsea's Invincibles as a better team. I mean, one was it Nicholas Anelka goal or whatever. One goal was the difference between Chelsea getting to 96, being miles ahead of Arsenal points wise, and getting invincible. So they're all cracking sides, but that one to me on the defensive side was incredible.
So you're putting that one ahead of the Invincibles, yeah? Chelsea's side.
Yeah, I will. Just on the basis that they won more games.
Okay, cool.
I like teams that win games rather than draw them.
Josh, let's bring you in, man. What do you make of this Chelsea side? Because obviously it must have frustrated you. You sit there, you think Arsenal just won it. Now Chelsea have come. We need to catch up. Like, what did you make of Jose Mourinho when he came in?
Well, I mean, we experienced him with Porto and what they did to us in the Champions League. So, as soon as he came over to Chelsea, it was another team that were battling for the top straight away. And they were a team that you straight away started looking at the results. They had some great players. Obviously, money was spent, but Mourinho spent well. He spent wisely, and he created a team that just has then dominated the Premier League around that time. And it was, as a United fan, you started to hate Chelsea because they were becoming kind of like us. They were dominating all the teams. They were winning the league. But we had some great matches against them. And Chelsea did have some great players, like Lampard came on, Terry, Drogba. You got to watch some class players.
For you, is that better than the Invincibles? Is it better than the treble 99?
It's hard, especially trying to be honest as well. It's what Arsenal did, no one's done. And you look at the squad. I think me personally, I would say the Invincible team. But you can't deny that Chelsea were, they were close to doing it as well. But for me, I just think if those teams played each other, I personally think it would be the Invincible team.
Fair one, mate. Fair one. That's very honest of you. Ray, we're going to come on to you because as soon as Chelsea spent all the money, you boys did as well. And you caught yourselves up and you went for it. And let's be honest, you had some fantastic sides, in my opinion, under Mancini as well. Excuse me, obviously Pellegrini. But for me, when Pep Guardiola came, I think that was when I decided that Man City were going to dominate football. And in my opinion, you have and still are. I still think you're a fantastic side. I know the Premier League's not gone well for you this year. But How would you agree with that statement? Is it because since Pep Guardiola has come, you've improved and you've seen a different style of play?
Yeah, I don't think you can argue about that. The first season, I think Pep struggled just to come to terms with everything. And even the fans were a bit disgruntled because obviously you got this manager who's come from Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and okay, the Champions League at Bayern Munich weren't great, but he was used to winning the league basically. So that's what we thought would happen, and it was a bit of a struggle. I can't remember, we finished fourth or third, but it was a bit of struggle the first season. But then he looked at some of the personnel, and we have someone like Jesus Navas playing right wing back, and you think, all right, fair enough. We've got a lot of older players. We had Bakary Sagna playing right back, and he was about 35 years old. Same on the left. So we had older players. We had to get rid of a lot, got some in. And what he did in that first season and the subsequent season, the domestic treble winning season, is immense. No, until this Liverpool side, no one has ever got that many points, 100 points, 98 points. So the good thing was he did it again. And people are saying it was weird during the season. We were miles ahead, we're scoring so many goals and everything else. And people say, well, to be considered great, you've got to do it back to back, which I thought was a little bit churlish. It's a little bit harsh when you're banging 100 points, scored 100 goals and all the other records we broke, for people to say you've got to do it back to back. And then he went and did it back to back. And for that kind of cements it. And I don't know who won in 2000, probably United. But it's doing it again. So it wasn't just a one-off achievement. Like I could argue the Invincibles was a one-off because the following season Arsenal dropped off by 17 points. They dropped off to second anyway with 12 points off the top. But City did it again, and I think it's a style that we did it with. And people said, well, you can't do that in the Premier League, Pep. You can't do what you were doing in Spain or Germany. And he stuck to his guns. We were worried a little bit because we just thought, is he stubborn? Because he was still doing the same the second season. And then once we suddenly got on a roll, we just couldn't stop winning. And it just felt like teams were coming to Manchester especially, or we were going there. And they were expecting to lose. And our players played with the kind of freedom that Liverpool have played with this season, where they've had no pressure. And they can just go out and they just expect to win, and other teams expect to lose. And I think he brought that, and just with these inverted fullbacks and playing people out of position, and you got to look back and think, well, we played with Delpha's left back, Delph and Zinchenko. Well, they're midfield players, and they're certainly not left backs, but we managed to cope. So it was a setup. It was a amount of possession we had, and I'll be honest, sometimes that possession is a little bit boring. Can I say that? When you're having that much, and it was tippy-tappy, passing it around, and then, but when we moved quickly, it was incisive. But there was a lot of passing it around, and it can get a little bit staid and monotonous at times, and a few fans would say that. But when we stepped it up, it was brilliant, and so Pep got a few players in that we needed, and he just went. It took, I think, anyway, he took the Premier League to new heights. 100 points, never been done before. Chelsea were close-ish with 95, but 100 points, and we thought it'd never be done again. I didn't even think City would do it again, and then obviously Liverpool. I hope they get their title one way or the other, so at least they can have that asterisk there. They were going to comfortably do it, but it's one of those records that I thought would never be achieved again.
Yeah, I must admit, I had a lot of respect for this Man City side. I feel like the Mancini one was great because of the Aguero in the last minute. I think that all the Man City fans will pick that one over that just for the pure fact of how it ended. But if you look at the amount of quality in this side under Pep Guardiola, this is the best Man City side that we're ever going to see, and probably one of the best sides we will ever see. And it's the one that comes close to the Invincibles for me, just for the pure fact that they absolutely dominated it in 100 points. I mean, it's absolutely scary. Goal difference of plus 72 is just, it's phenomenal.
79. I'm going to have to double check that.
Oh, 79, was it? I thought it was 72. I read it wrong. But
79 and, goals of 106, winning 32 games. And that's what I base it on. We won a lot of games as well.
Yeah, and by a long margin as well. That was what was so great about it. You absolutely dominated it. Josh, Man United fan, you're sitting there thinking, "Oh dear, going to get a lot of abuse." But when you take the seriousness, how great this Man City side is, you've got to take your hat off, haven't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's the way they play as well, though. Potts, they're an amazing team to watch. I hate saying it, but they are. The style of play. Always attacking, scoring goals. It's never foot off the pedal. They're going to just keep coming at you. It's. I hate the fact it's our biggest rivals, but you got to give credit to him, and what Pep's done there is an amazing job. He's a great manager.
Yeah, no, fair. Well, listen, Matt, I don't know if there's much more to add really about how fantastic this side was. I mean, Chelsea have done it with they spent some money. You see, Man City have spent some money as well, but absolute class, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Pep never bought a bad player, did he? Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Milito said he left after one season and said it was so dark in Manchester. His kids were changing colour. They were turning white.
But yeah, great team. Again, I knew how the fans felt because it's been in a similar position with a good manager coming in charge. I don't think any of us here who aren't City fans would turn our nose up if Pep was linked with our team from time to time. What a great manager. Seems to get the best out of players. Seems to make it clear if you don't like players as well. With Joe Hart sort of thing. I think that was in his era, wasn't it?
Yeah, Joe Hart left the first season, but that's because Joe Hart didn't want to stay and fight. Joe Hart, compared to Edison, is a better shot stopper, quite comfortably, but he couldn't play with his feet. And, a lot of City fans were unhappy, but we look back and say for what Pep wanted to do with the team, he needed someone like Edison.
Yeah, and Edison is class, to be fair.
The only thing I can add is that looking at the Man United team that done the treble, they won the European Cup as well, which City under Pep haven't yet been able to do. I'm sure that one day they will. With the team they've got, it's great, and the expenditure and the appeal for people to come to the club. But they didn't win that Champions League. I don't know where they finished that year. I don't know if they even came close. Ray will be able to tell me, I'm sure.
Knocked out by Monaco. I think that was the season. Was it 6-6 or Liverpool? One of the two. I mean, we've had a bit of a bad run. I'm just trying to think. Last season
I think it was Liverpool, wasn't it?
It was Liverpool because we got beat by Monaco the season before. That was 6-6. We got beat. We were letting a lot of goals in, which was weird. We got beat. Was it 5-1 by Liverpool? Spurs scored, I think, 4 goals against us overall in the game. So we got a bit of a stumbling block in the Champions League. I don't think. This was you could argue this was our best chance, even though we're not as good as we were in the last 2 seasons. It was our best chance, partly because Liverpool had been knocked out, and I don't think anybody else is unbeatable. I think the bogey team for City, and it's been like that for a long, long time, is Liverpool. And so them getting, well, let's be honest, humiliated by Atletico twice. Well, you got beat twice, Bring them back to Anfield and see what they do there. Well, they turned up and they did it. That was the only team I would have feared, and I don't think. I mean, if the press believe Pep's off, but I don't think he'll win the Champions League. It depends how long he stays. I mean, if he stays for another 10 years, yes, I think he'll do it. But if he's only going to stay another couple of years, then I'm not so sure. I'm not confident.
Ray, before we move on as well, I've got a comment here, which is an interesting one, saying that the lower point total means the more teams were beating each other. Now the best teams have far fewer games where there's a risk of losing. I'm not sure that's necessarily true. What do you make of that, Ray?
Well, I mean, my point was, look at the teams that were challenging at the top, and I understand the argument that when you won the league in '99, United had 79 points, Arsenal had 78, Chelsea had 75. So it was all quite tight and bunched up. But the rest of them, you could argue they were just taking points off each other. There was no one else. Leeds were 12 points off United. There was no one else really up there getting the sort of points haul that would make you think that they're a decent side. And when Chelsea won it, Arsenal were 12 points off. And as I said, you go down. I mean, Everton were fourth they were 34 points off. Chelsea, but they were only on 61. And that's how I look at it. That when City were Centurions, Chelsea came 5th with 70 points. So Chelsea had a decent side. And, teams were not getting hammered. Liverpool only lost 5 games that season, which in some other seasons, that's enough to win the league, but they just drew too many. So I think I understand what you're saying, but there was a lot of, I think the competition at the top end was a bit higher, a slightly higher level when City won it, except for the gap between City and the rest. But the next 4 quite blunt with good points. 70 points is a decent return, and Leicester won it with something 82 or 81 points. So that's not far off winning it in some seasons. Whereas United, it's not meant to be disrespectful, but it's like, well, you only got 79 points. Many of the seasons you would not have won the league with 79 points. I would suggest probably over half of the other seasons you wouldn't have won the league. But with 100 points, you're winning it every time.
Fair enough. We're all going to stick up for our own side. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick one that is not our own club. Josh, you cannot pick the treble 99. Who are you going to go for?
For me, it'd be the Invincible team, Potts.
Okay. Matt?
The United treble winning would be for me.
Ray?
You're going to have the casting vote, Potsy. I'm going for Chelsea. So basically, Invincibles can't win.
Yeah, I've screwed myself over there, haven't I? Invincibles can't win. I'm going to listen. I thought that Man City side was fantastic. However, I don't think I've ever seen a team as good in every single competition as Man United were that year. And for that reason, I'm going to have to go there. What a nightmare. I'll do an Arsenal podcast.
Pep won the League Cup.
Boys, what we're going to do now for the last 15 minutes is just go through a bit of a dream team with some of the players that have been mentioned, but you're only allowed to pick players that were in those teams. So, for example, Cristiano Ronaldo is not allowed to be picked because he was not in 1999, if that makes sense. All right. So we're going to start off with the goalkeeper, and the options are Jens Lehmann, Peter Schmeichel, Ederson, and Petr Cech. Now, for me personally, Petr Cech has probably been one of the best goalkeepers the Premier League's seen in terms of his clean sheets record, but I'm going to give it to Peter Schmeichel just for the pure facts that I thought he was the best goalkeeper the Premier League's seen. I think that his trophies say it all. I thought he was dominant in the early 90s, and I thought he was at one stage the best in the world. So I'm going to give it to Peter Schmeichel. Josh, will come to you because I've given it to Schmeichel. Would you put Cech or the others in, or would you agree and say that Schmeichel was the best?
I mean, you can't not check what he's done for Chelsea and, how consistent he was. I mean, for me, it's a close battle between Schmeichel and Cech. For me, I'd go with Schmeichel, being a United fan, but I mean, you can't not consider Cech, can you?
Unbelievable goalkeeper, and I mean, it wasn't at his best when he come to Arsenal, but still kept us in games. Absolutely brilliant to keep clean sheets, and he's actually kept the clean sheet record at our club, penalty saves, and what he's done. Matt, I'll let you have this one because Cech's got to be your choice, I imagine. So stick up for him, mate, because I've not crucified him, but Schmeichel for me gets the nod. But go for it.
No, definitely, but it's a 2-horse race between all them names you said. It's got to be either Cech or Schmeichel. Career-wise, I think the only thing that stopped Cech from being the best Premier League goalkeeper was a head injury, and that's the only thing that stopped him, and that prevented him from continuing at his best. Because he definitely weren't the same when he come back with his rugby out on. We thought we had a brilliant keeper with Carlo Cudicini, and we didn't think we needed a keeper, and then Cech come along and he was even better, And to be honest, we've struggled to replace him ever since. Courtois. And bloody Kepa is it's a bit like Marmite, but I'm gonna make it interesting with Ray to come next, and I'm gonna go with Cech, although I think it's extremely close. If we're going just by that season, like certain seasons, then yeah, it's close. But if we're going career wise, then obviously Schmeichel is brilliant and plenty of accolades to go with it.
Yeah, we've got to go by that season, by the season of each team. So I'm going to go Schmeichel just, but Cech misses out. That's really harsh. Ray, make it interesting. What are you going to go for?
Well, I've got to say, I've got to agree with Matt's good point that I think Cech could have been the best ever without that head injury, because he was incredible before that. But I think I've got to go with Manchester City legend Peter Schmeichel, because he did play for us. Gotta get that in. Well, we've had loads of legends from you guys. We've had Schmeichel, we've had Lampard, David Seaman, Andy Cole came to us for a bit. So all these legends want to finish off at last payday at Man City when they could. But I'll go Schmeichel, because he took goalkeeping to a whole new level. You can see it bits in his kid Casper, but he took it to a whole new level. And when he was in his 20s, you just thought he was never going to get beat. One-on-one, you'd back Schmeichel every single time. So I think it was probably comfortable for me because of Cech's injury.
And he scores goals, Peter Schmeichel, as well. Don't forget that. Peter Schmeichel gets in our vote then. He's gone into the goal. Now, listen, at right back, it's going to be quite easy for me. I thought Lauren was underrated, as I mentioned. I thought Kyle Walker improved as a right back at Man City under Pep. I thought Ferreira was very consistent for Chelsea and quite one that went under the radar. But for me, Gary Neville walked straight into that team. I thought he was an unbelievably consistent right back, and for England and for club and country. So I'm going to go with Gary Neville. Matt, we'll go with you.
Yeah, Gary Neville was a hard one to top, really. I have to agree with you on that one. I've sort of already put my point across for Ferreira. Like I say, not one to break all the headlines, but just a consistent player that would give you a good performance every week. But yeah, I think I'd have to agree with you, Potsy, on G-Nev. Although he's funnier now than he was back then. He cracks me. I didn't like him at first as a pundit, but he's bang on.
Do you know what? I think he's my favourite pundit. I think he's absolute quality. And listen, I love Roy Keane. He's hilarious as well. But actually, for someone who I think talks sense and isn't biased, Gary Neville is class. Absolute class. But Josh, as a player, you must be agreeing there and saying that Neville walked straight in.
I would say walk straight in, because there are some good right backs in these teams. I just think what he done consistently for United, he was kind of around one of those first attacking fullbacks, always getting forward, trying to put a ball in. And I think it was a little bit different back then to what it is nowadays, where you see the right and left backs going forward so much. I think he was one of the kind of first to sort of do it. But yeah, I think Gary Neville does go into that team.
Ray, are you going to put up a fight for Walker or Lauren or Ferreira?
No. He's not done it long enough for me. Walker hasn't. He had a couple of good seasons. That doesn't make it. Neville had that longevity, so it's full ice from me. You can't argue with the rat boy. He's another City legend, because a rat boy, because he got dispossessed by was it Sean Gota, and we beat them in a derby. I think that was a commemorative one, because it happened to be on around the date of the Munich air disaster. But we beat them at their place, and we weren't very good at all. So he's a legend from City point of view for that. So I'll go for him as well.
Fair enough, mate. Gary Neville walks in for consistency. Left back for me is easy, but it's horrible for me to say it because I don't like the guy for what he did to us. But Ashley Cole, I thought, was the best left back in the world at one part of his career. I think he took over from Maldini and Carlos as being one of the best that there's ever been. So Ashley Cole walks straight into at left back. I will mention Dennis Irwin, because I think Dennis Irwin is one of those players who was up and down, right or left back, was very consistent, never injured, played every game for Man United pretty much, and was a kind of great servant for Man United. But Ashley Cole walked straight in this for me. Josh?
Yeah, not arguing with their Pots. Done it for you guys, done it for Chelsea. Probably one of the best left backs up there with like Roberto Carlos, I'd say.
Yeah, fair one, mate. Matt, obviously he was great for you and he was great for us, but Chelsea must, to be fair, he did actually win a lot more at Chelsea and he won everything there is to win in football. So for me, one of the best left backs in the world, and walk straight into this side. Yeah,
class, mate. I can't add any more to it. That's where my vote's going. Simple as, really. I can't think of anyone to top him or come close, really.
Yeah, likewise, mate. Absolutely. Ray, we'll move on to the centre-backs of you, because this is going to be an interesting one for me, because there's quite a lot of options here. So I've actually got to read these out. in the end. Well, Terry and Carvalho were a great centre-back partnership for me from Chelsea, but I also thought Campbell and Toure were as well. But Vincent Kompany and Laporte were absolutely sensational. I know Kompany didn't play every single game for the last couple of years for Man City, but he, for me, has been outstanding for Manchester City. And I think, along with Yaya Toure and the Agueros and David Silvas, is right up there with Man City for me. I'm gonna put two together here, and I'm gonna find it very difficult for you boys to disagree with this. I've gone with Vincent Kompany and John Terry as the two. I haven't gone for a partnership.
I was thinking, Potts. That would have been my two.
I just think you look at their leadership, what they've won championship-wise. They led their team, club and country, to the best of their ability. And I think with John Terry, everyone takes a mick out of him getting the kit on and taking the trophy and all that. But I thought he'll go down as a Chelsea legend forever and probably the best defender that the Premier League's seen. I think Vincent Kompany, for what he's done consistently with Man City in terms of Captain Marvel, as they call him, just for that goal against Leicester. I mean, Jesus Christ, that was an absolute rocket into the top corner when, let's be honest, without that, it wouldn't have been. So I think Vincent Kompany and John Terry, for me, better than Pallister and Bruce, better than Campbell and Toure, better than Carvalho and Laporte. Ray, is there anything?
I can't really argue with that. I mean, that season, I'm just looking at the stats because Kompany played 17 games in the league. That's all. He only played 17 last season. Laporte came halfway through the season. So I think Laporte, you can see from what we've been like this season without him. I think he's a fabulous player. But he only came for half the season from January. And the thing about Kompany, I'm not going to argue with Terry and Kompany. The thing about Kompany is you can see what difference he makes to the team, even when he's not playing. Because he's the guy who gels everybody. And he's the guy who's kind of been there he was there before the money came. And he's kind of dragged the place through. And he's a bit of a schoolmaster. He's the guy who does the fines and stuff. But he understood, he's married a Manchester lass and he's basically an adopted Manc now. And he understood the fans and the players and the club and what, so he could relate to or relate's probably the wrong word, but he was like that. He was in between the management and the owners and stuff and the chairman and the fans. So he could, he could get on with everybody. Great spokesperson, great statesman. And it was just that gelling of the club and being the captain. And he was injured for so long, but he still managed to drive the team forward. And I think that's what we've certainly missed him around the place this season. But I'm going with you with John Terry as well. And for so long, he's just been what do you want to call him, Captain Fantastic? I don't know what his nickname is, but he's just been a leader. He's won 4 or 5 Premier Leagues with Chelsea. It's a lot. And I just think he stands head and shoulders above some of the other names we might mention.
Yeah, I agree with that. Ray, we're going to stay with you because there's a couple of comments that come in that have made me laugh. Somebody thinks your lead judge is in a Man City shirt, which has made me laugh.
Well, I've got the same hairstyle. That's about it, isn't it?
And then Danny, shout out to Danny from Burkamp Wonderland. If you have not watched Burkamp Wonderland or listened to Burkamp Wonderland podcast, go and give it a listen. Danny has asked, is that Carl Pilkington? Which did make me laugh. And my mum's in the chat as well. Hello, mum. Matt, we'll come to you because John Terry.
It's not for you. The message is for me.
That's it, Ray. That's it. She's a fan, mate. She's a fan. Matt, John Terry must go down as one of the best Chelsea players ever, surely.
Yeah, he's definitely there, mate, especially my era. Him and Lampard, they're the first names that sort of come to mind when someone says, name a legend from your era. He was just consistent, solid at the back, showed that he would put his head in to any challenge, as we've seen him get booted and swallow his tongue and still didn't put him off after that, still put his head into anything, still throw himself in front of anything and work hard, Yeah, he had a little streak in him that, would get him the odd book in and, VAR, looking back, if we had VAR back then, he probably would have received a few more red cards, but you need that as a defender. And and you have to have that in your shirt. Pull the shirt off someone's back, give them a cheeky little knee, and he's the best defender that I've known at Chelsea, and I wish we had someone like that now, just to command the back. On its own is enough, just to keep that. He was always shouting, keeping the line, pushing them up, pushing them back, giving someone a rollicking when they needed it. Pure passion, and it was horrible to watch when he missed that penalty in Champions League final when it hit the post when he slipped. But people take the mick about him putting his kit on and that and getting it. But if anyone in that team throughout the years deserves to lift that Champions League trophy, it was him. So he's certainly going to be one of my picks. And from the points that you other guys put across, Company, we all know who Company is. We all know what he did. When we say some of the other names, I haven't got as many memories in my head of what they did and what they won, and how much if someone, it's like when you play in a team, if they say, oh yeah, Company's injured today, you'd be like, get in there. That's like, like we've got an extra man now. That's what it felt like, and them sort of players are just.
Yeah, so true, mate. I totally agree. I think Terry and Company, a definite partnership walking in, everyone can agree on that one. This is where we're going to disagree, though, because there's going to be two centre midfielders, and this is going to be very, very hard to leave two of them out. In my opinion, you've got Roy Keane and Paul Scholes. You've got Patrick Vieira and Gilberto Silva. You've got Fernandinho, and Yaya Toure went about him. Am I right, Gray, or was he?
It was still that was his last season, but it was no good. He was.
I've put Gondwan down. Was he more about?
I wouldn't even mention. He was about it, but I wouldn't mention Gundogan. I mean, if we're talking at a level that's worth discussing in terms of defensive midfield, there's only Fernandinho from City around that time. I wouldn't even mention anybody else as a defensive holding kind of player. I
just wanted to check Yaya wasn't really playing, because I know he was still there, but wasn't really.
He was still there. Yaya's time was in 2014 when we won. Then he was the best. He was best player. 20 goals from midfield is incredible.
It was, and of course Lampard and Makelele were exceptional. I'm going to start this off. This is going to get interesting. I'm going to put in Patrick Vieira and Paul Scholes. I don't think I can leave Paul Scholes out. Roy Keane and Lampard, very hard done by. I think Fernandinho is a great defensive midfielder, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's in that category of those players consistently in the Premier League. I think he's fantastic. Likewise, Makelele, you could say, as Matt said earlier, him and Kante have kind of made themselves their own position, a name after it. Patrick Vieira, for me, was the reason that Arsenal won what they won. And in that invincible season, he was outstanding. So he walks in, and it was who else I put in with him. And Roy Keane is really hard done by. Imagine that midfield. The only reason I put it together is one to get sent off one week, and then the next one will get sent off the other one after. So I thought I'd have to kind of put in someone who I think can dictate play, and Paul Scholes is that man. Paul Scholes, for me, is one of the the best English midfielders that we've ever produced, in my opinion. He was the one player I used to hate playing up against. And every single player you ask, who is the best midfielder? They all say Paul Scholes. Xavi, Zidane, Iniesta. They all say it's Paul Scholes. And they used to say, Zidane, who's the best midfielder? And he never used to say me. He used to say, I don't know, ask Paul Scholes. That to me says Paul Scholes was the best midfielder one that the Premier League's seen. So I'm going to go with Patrick Vieira because I've got my biased hat on, and I'm going to have loyalty to the guy because he's an absolute hero. And then I'm going to put Paul Scholes next to him. Josh.
Yeah, it's got to be Paul Scholes in there. Like you said, just growing up watching him play, he was just an absolute genius. He can ping a ball, look for a killer pass, score goals. He was just kind of like the all-rounder, really. It's really tough for the second one because I was also thinking Vieira, but I think you can't leave out Lampard. He's box-to-box player. 1 minute he's back, then he's up there and he gets goals. So for me, I think I'm going to say Lampard and Scholes.
Lampard and Scholes. 2 for Scholes, 1 for Lampard, 1 for Vieira. I think I know where this is going. Matt?
Well, we can include Lampard at City as well. He scored against us to shatter hopes of a win. Mate, I can't leave out Makaleli. Just at the time, just unlike any other player, just immense, and you can look back now on games and he's still immense, a little flyweight, nothing to him. Didn't, kept himself out of trouble. Very, very much like Kante. And just a general all-round nice bloke as well off the pitch. But yeah, like I said earlier, the only thing I could say is that he had a position named after him, and how many other players can you say have had that? Lampard, again, like I said, I'm just going to sit here and name Chelsea players, but Lampard, great player. And like I said to you earlier about legends, when you asked me about a Chelsea legend from that era, it's Lampard and Terry. So I can't, try and be diverse, and I respect all the other players, but I'm going to go Lampard and Macca.
Wow. Lampard gets 2 votes. Scholes gets 2 votes. Ray, it's on you, man.
I've got to be honest, I love Scholes as a player. He had just about everything, great vision, dirty tackler, great shots, volleys and everything. But I've got to mention Fernandinho because I think he's even though people think he's a great player, I still think he's underrated. We've seen, I think the 2 biggest reasons for me that City aren't as good this season as they were last season. One, we lost company, and the second one is Fernandinho has not been playing defensive midfield. He's had to play centre back because Laporte's been out, and Rodri is not on a par with. He's not even half the player that Fernandinho is, and Fernandinho, it took that the dark arts, that innocuous foul to break up play to new heights. I think the guy he'd do 4 or 5 tackles or little dirty nudges here and there to break up play before he got booked. So I thought that was an art in itself. But I'm going to go for ex-City legend Frank Lampard. Not for what he did at City, but I mean, to score almost, was it 150, 60 goals or something or whatever. He's got a ton of goals, Lampard, coming through from midfield late on. And another guy who it looked like he had everything. So I can't leave Lampard out. And I'll go for another City legend in Patrick Vieira. Because he had it's how I'm going to do it. It's all the way I can get any City players in here. So I'll go for Patrick Vieira because even when he was at our place, he was class. His legs had gone. But at Arsenal, he was I loved him. I loved him because he got in the face of people like Roy Keane. I think if you had them both playing together in the same team, both of them would be sent off every single week. Not just one of them. They'd be fine with each other. But Vieira, for me, he was classy. He had the way he used to run. He used to just glide across the pitch, and he stuck up for his players. He did everything you'd want from a captain. So I'm going for Lampard and Vieira.
Okay, cool. Well, what we're going to have to do is switch it around then. We're going to have to put Vieira, Scholes and Lampard in as a 3 because there's no other way of doing it now. So Vieira...
You're going to leave a lot of attacking players out.
I know, mate. I know. It's the only way to do it. I'm not sure if this is a compliment or not, but I'm going to put it up anyway because it's made me laugh. Damn legend. Got to say, with that beard, you look like a certain English king who had 6 wives. Mate, that would be extremely expensive, mate. X6 wives. That would be extremely expensive. No,
he's referring to the gout, really. The guy with the gout. Yeah, that would be it.
Unbelievable. Okay, so we're going to have to go for 3 up front now, 3 strikers or kind of wide men. So we're going to read them all out because this is going to get interesting. So, wide men. We have Freddie Ljungberg, Raheem Sterling, David Beckham, Arjen Robben, Robert Pires, David Silva, Joe Cole, and Ryan Giggs. This is going to be very, very difficult. I think what we're going to do is we're going to have to put 1 up front, I think. Unless you want to go with 3 strikers. How do we want to play this, boys?
Well, I was hoping you can have some attacking midfielders.
Yeah, we've got Cole, York, Bergkamp, Henry, Aguero, and Drogba, all as up front. That's going to be very, very difficult to pick. So I think we might need to go with 1 up front. I think, which is going to be very difficult. So. And then we're going to have to go with 2.
I think you go with too many in midfield to leave out all this attacking talent.
Listen, we couldn't decide on midfield, so I don't know how else we're going to do it. We've got
do two wingers and a forward.
I think
Kevin De Bruyne's name mentioned. No, he didn't play enough that season. No, he did. Kevin De Bruyne.
De Bruyne is a great shout, to be fair, yeah. I didn't even put De Bruyne. He's one of my favourite Premier League players, so that's another
Chelsea
one.
legend.
Chelsea legend.
You've lost De Bruyne straight away.
If I have to pick two wide players here, I'm going to go with Ryan Giggs on the left, because I don't think you can leave him out. He's the most decorated player in Premier League history. He's won the most from 17 to 41 years old. So I'm going to have to put Giggs in, as much as I love Pires. And I'm going to go with David Silva on the other wing, just because I think he's one of the best players the Premier League's seen. I think he's very underrated. I like Beckham. I like Robben. I like Sterling, to be fair. I think he's been class. But I think if you look at what David Silva's done at Manchester City, I think that he has to get the nod. So I'm going to go Silva and Giggs. Ray.
I'm definitely going to go with David Silva, because I think he's been the best City player I've ever seen. Just what he's done, and the games he's changed, and the way he just controls the games. And he knows when to pass the ball. And when Sane first come to City, you could see at times where David Silva and Sane would be bombing down the wing or something, or trying to get ahead of the fullback, and David Silva would delay his pass, and Sane would get frustrated. But what David Silva did, he delayed his pass a fraction of a second to make sure Sane would be bombing on, and the defender had no chance of getting the ball or getting Sane or even fouling him. And Sane didn't get that, I think, for the first season. So I've got to have David Silva there. And I love David Beckham. Absolutely love David Beckham as the free kicks and the crosses and everything else. And he was just like, it didn't matter if a guy was stood in front of him, he'd still bend it around him and put a fantastic cross in. But this time I'm going to go for a second City player in KDB. I'm going to have to go for Kevin De Bruyne for the numbers he's putting in, and the fact he's struggled with injury as well. But that Centurion season, we had, I think, 5 players got more than 10 assists. I think he had about 15 assists, KDB, a few goals as well. And he's another one. And some of the passes he puts in, you just can't see. Even in the replay, you just don't understand how he saw that. He's like Bergkamp-esque. How did you see that? So I'm going to go with 2 City players. So David Silva and KDB.
There we go. Not biased at all there, Ray. Josh, let's come to you, man. Who are you going for? I've gone for Giggs and Silva. Ray's gone for Silva and De Bruyne. So Silva's got 2 votes.
These both for the wingers, yeah. So left and right, yeah.
Yeah, wingers, yeah.
Winger wise, it's got to be Ryan Giggs. Not just for what he's done that season, but his whole United career. He could do anything. Giggs. Even at the old age, he was so sort of football smart. He could play the right ball. He'd always be in the right position. And, he'd done it for so long. And he was like one of the big leaders for United, I think, throughout the whole sort of Fergie era. So I'm definitely going to have Ryan Giggs in there. I think if we're going about wingers, I love Silva. I think he's probably one of the top 10 players in the Premier League. Would you class him as a winger though, or would he play more sort of behind the striker? Well,
we're not having many midfielders, so I'm guessing that we've got all those kind of defensive, hard type midfielders. We've got no attacking, but Silva would play left side of attacking midfield, and he'd interchange with the winger a bit as well. So I don't mind if you pick Giggsy, because he was a City legend. He was a City as a kid, so I don't mind.
Josh, you're going for Giggs. Who else are you going for?
I'd have to go Beckham, I think, with me. I think his game was just so different from anyone else's I've seen. Set pieces, he was just, deadly, whether it be corners, free kicks. But I think a lot of people forget about his sort of like his dribbling, and he did have some skill, and he was kind of like a De Bruyne back then. He could always play that killer ball, that killer cross that could just create chances. Or if he was in the range, you can score goals. So for me, probably a bit biased, but I'd go for Beckham Giggs.
Look at that. Everyone's been so biased apart from me here. I haven't got one Arsenal player here. I should have gone for Lundberg and Perez, shouldn't I? Matty, votes on you, man. 2 for Giggs, 2 for Silva. It's looking like it's going to be that unless you can change your minds, mate.
Yeah, I don't think I've got a dog in this fight. Robin, yeah, he's all right, but he's an injury prone and one-trick pony, Joe Cole, like I said, very good, but, compared to these other guys, he's outshined, So it's difficult because I've got 3 that I want to pick. And those 3 are Ryan Giggs, Silva, and Beckham. So in the interest of fairness, I'm going to pick one from each team and not go Beckham and Giggs. So it's going to be David Silva, just purely because great player. Every time I'd be sitting there waiting for the goals to come in my phone, a goal will pop up or an assist, and it'd be David Silva. Because he's just involved in everything, and it's just got some great performances in all the time. Someone I would have had certainly in my team, and that sort of means quite a bit when you look at other players and go, yeah, they'll walk straight in our team. The other one is, very, very difficult to pick between Giggsy and Beckham. And it's probably going to mess up this whole voting thing because I'm going to go Beckham. Not only because, I wasn't obviously interested in Man U really at that age, because all the other kids in school at the time supported Man U and they were winning everything. And I just, resented it. But Beckham was still a legend in my book, still is, on and off the pitch. Even when he wasn't at his best, a brilliant impact sub that you would bring on, the 12th man would erupt in the crowd, even for England as well. Lightning quick down there, put a ball wherever you want. He could probably still do it now as well. What a legend. And yeah, he would have to go in there for me.
Blimey. So we've got Giggs. Who have we got there? So you've gone for Beckham or Giggs, Matty? You went for Beckham.
Beckham and Silva.
Beckham and Silva. We've got 2 with Giggs, 3 with Giggs. So Giggs definitely walks in. 2 with Silva, 2 with Beckham. We're going to have to let the chat decide this for us. David Silva or David Beckham. Whoever you think should be on that side.
Who did you go for, Dan? Did you go for Silva as well?
I went for Silva and Giggs, yeah.
If Matt's gone for Silva and I've gone for Silva.
Oh,
Silva,
yeah, cool. So we got it. Silva and Giggs. Sorry, mate. Sorry,
yeah.
I thought we'd gone for it. I thought we had for Beckham as well. Cool, Giggs and Silva. That makes it a lot easier. But this doesn't, because I've only got 1 up front, and I really wanted to choose 1 up front. 2 up front, because I feel that there's absolute quality in this strike force. However, I think if you're picking 1, I'm not saying this because I'm an Arsenal fan. I think Thierry Henry is the best striker the Premier League has seen. So I will walk in with Thierry Henry. I was going to go with Thierry Henry and Aguero. Love Bergkamp. I actually think Bergkamp's probably the best player to wear the shirt. But if you're looking at goals and what they've done in the Premier League, then I would have gone Henry and Aguero up top. But I have gone with Thierry Henry as a lone striker. Josh, let's start with you. What do you reckon?
Oh, mate, for me, it would definitely be out of them 2. It'd definitely be out of Henry. I think Drogba is close, but nowhere near as close as these 2. For me, though, I think Aguero. I love Thierry Henry, but Aguero, the guy just does not stop scoring goals. You go on about when you sit you're playing, you're looking at results, or who you got in your dreams team. Most people have got Aguero. He's going to get a goal from somewhere or something. I hate to say it, but he is one of the best strikers that the league's seen. He's done it season after season, and he's just a great player.
Fair enough. I can't say I agree, but I can't say he was a better player. I think Aguero's class. But Matt, what do you think, mate?
Very difficult again, and it's them 2 names. We spoke about Drogba earlier, and you said Potsy. He's not someone that naturally people would pick out of the air to say one of the best strikers, but very good player. So honourable mention to him, but it's going to be between those 2, ain't it? Aguero, brilliant player, scored important goals as well, cool head, especially in front of goal. One-on-one situation, you put your house on it that he's going to put it in the net, whereas, so many forwards I can think of wouldn't. Henry, exactly the same. The only difference I can sort of really pick between the 2 is that Henry came back and did it again. And he was still not as good, but he still come back to you guys and he did all right, and he was putting goals in. so hard for me to pick, and it would have to be a flip of a coin. But because we've got a lot of Arsenal in there already, I'm going to go with Aguero.
They got any, have we?
Have we not?
Vieira.
Ashley Cole.
That's it. Oh, and Ashley Cole, yeah, too.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's gone to Aguero. It's too late to give it back.
Aguero. I think Aguero's going to win it because Ray's not going to pick Henry, is he? So
Well, I'm gonna give you some stats. I mean, for all the goals Thierry Henry scored, you know, if you look at his minutes per goal, it's 121 minutes per goal. And I'm going back to last September. I think Aguero's in September was 106 minutes per goal. Now, he's got more goals than Henry in the Premier League, I think. He's overtook him. He's got the most hat-trick in the Premier League. And he's scoring goals at, you know, I can't remember what his actual exact. It's hard to find these lists, up-to-date list. But I think it might be something like 90-odd minutes per goal at the moment. Harry Kane's the next best with 117. So, you know, Aguero's, I think, head and shoulders ahead in terms of goals he scored and how quickly he scored them. But I'm going to go with Thierry Henry.
no,
I'm going to shock you guys. But I watched a lot of football when Thierry Henry was at Arsenal, and he scored some amazing goals. You know, people talk about Luis Suarez scoring. He scored some amazing goals, but he did it for a short amount of time. But Henry did it for pretty much year after year after year. I'm not that enamoured about when he come back, he scored a few goals, but it's like saying, well, if Aguero took a season off injured and came back and scored 20 goals, that felt like Henry came back and scored a few goals. That I'm not including them. But when he was at Arsenal, in that team, you know, around that era, those few years, he was just incredible. So growing up, I loved him, and if you offered me the two, I'd go with Thierry Henry because I just think he had a little bit more.
wow, I'm amazed. That's very honest of you, man. I thought you were going to stick with Aguero. The only thing I'll say about Aguero, as much as he's absolutely outstanding, I don't think he's won a Golden Boot, and I don't think he gets in many team
He
years.
has won a Golden Boot. He has won a Golden Boot.
Oh, yes.
He won it once, and he still didn't make team of the season. So he won Golden Boot. They had two forwards up front. I think they had that season. I can't remember now who they had up front, but they had Kane as one, and I can't remember who the other one was. Aguero still didn't win. I don't think he's ever been in Player of the Season, Aguero. It's ridiculous.
Ryan's come from Mr. Arsenal, says, how's Bergkamp not in this team? So many players have missed out, Ryan. I've been outnumbered. I've been outvoted by a few.
Dump goals and put Bergkamp in. I wouldn't argue with that. You've got too many of those central midfielders. That dump goals. You can't not have Bergkamp in this team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know it's scary, isn't it? It really is scary. But this is what this is about, and this is one, it's all opinions, but two, it just proves how great some of the players have been that all four of us have had the pleasure of witnessing. And that's not just for our own teams; that's for each other's as well, you know. And we've all had enough respect on this podcast to explain why people should be in it, and I think that we've all had the kind of say of, do you know what? Yeah, I can totally fight their corner, and they don't play for any of our sides. So we've gone for Schmeichel in goal. We've gone for Gary Neville at right back. We've gone for Ashley Cole at left back with Vincent Kompany and John Terry as our centre backs. We've gone with a three of Scholes, Vieira and Lampard. And we've gone with Henry up front with Silva and Giggs either side. Now, some people may say that we can drop a midfielder, maybe a Lampard or Scholes for Bergkamp. I obviously wouldn't mind that personally at all. But I think that just goes to show how close this was, because it was... There's so much open for debate, and people in the chat have been putting in names as well. How's Beckham not in? How's Bergkamp not in? How's Aguero not in? And that to me just says it all, how fantastic these players were, you know, absolutely outstanding. Boys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Before we do go, just want to get your opinion on what you think should happen to the football season. Josh, we'll start with you. Do you think they should void it? Do you think they should play behind closed doors? What's your opinion, mate?
That's a tough one, Potts. You know, I'd love to see the season finish, to be fair. You know, I think Liverpool deserve to win it. I hate saying it, that, you know, they should win it. But for me, it's then, you know, fighting for the Champions League spots. So, and that's what I want this year. So I would like to see it finish, whether that'll happen or not, and they void it. I hope they don't void it. I would like to see the season finished, even if it's behind closed doors somewhere. So I would like to see the season finished, to be fair.
Fair enough. And Josh, if they do finish the season, Bruno Fernandes was looking like he had a chance of getting you into the top 4. Do you think you would have made it?
Yeah, I think we would have made top 4 this year. I think it would have been a really hard battle to get there, but I think we looked like we were up and coming, and the likes of Pogba, Rashford coming back. I think if the league does come back and we can finish it and we get those players back, I think we've got a really good chance.
Fair one, mate. I think Bruno's been a brilliant signing for Man United, and if it does come back, I think he could get them into that top 4. Matt, what do you think should happen? And if it does finish, where do you think Chelsea would have ended up or will end up?
I think we would have ended up in top 4, to be honest. There was inconsistencies everywhere, weren't there, apart from Liverpool. What I think should happen is give the trophy to Liverpool and just concentrate on next season. Scrap the rest of it. I don't know how they would be able to do it, and I love football. But let's just try and have a good season next season, because at the moment, they're working so hard to try and make it work and scramble bits together and behind closed doors, and there's a lot that hasn't been considered. I'd much rather have a full season next season. Give it to Liverpool. I'm not against anyone having it. They fully deserve it, and at least we'll all still be able to say, well, you did win it, but you didn't play all the games. You didn't actually win it. So but yeah, they fully deserve it. Give it Liverpool. Concentrate next season for me.
Fair enough. Ray, before we come to you, I'm going to say what I think, because it might throw a spanner in the works here, because I'm going to disagree with both the lads and say that the season should be voided and cancelled, null and void. And the reason I say that is because safety comes first. I think that if you start looking at the other teams in the leagues all around the world that are now cancelling their season and throwing PSG champions, and Holland have cancelled their season, that then messes up next year's Champions Leagues and Europa Leagues. I think what will happen is if you do give Liverpool the championship, as much as I believe they deserve it, I don't think that's fair on teams like Leeds, who should be coming up, fought for 16 years now to try and get into it. So how can you crown Liverpool champions but not West Brom and Leeds? How could you then potentially look at players going down or teams going down like Villa, who have got a game in hand? Sheffield United win their game in hand, they go ahead of United in 5th. That for me is just too much ifs and buts. I think if you are not going to play any more football, then I think it needs to be null and void, and that's it. You don't crown anyone champions. If you are going to play football behind closed doors, I don't like that, because I don't care if it's, you can watch it still, at least it's better than nothing. To me, fans make football. And if the fans aren't there, it ain't going to be a football game. And I remember there was a behind closed door game in Italy, and you could hear the coaches talking to the tactics. You could hear the players screaming. It's just not going to be right. And for me, yes, I'll watch it. Yes, I'll be happy if they win. But to me, if the behind closed doors goes ahead, the season is done for me, whatever happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I've had lots of thoughts about this, and it's interesting what you said there, because I've never been one for the null and void. Because I think that's the least fair way of sorting out the season. I think the least unfair way is to finish it at some point. But at some point, you're going to have to say enough's enough, especially if, say, UEFA say next season we're going to have a Champions League. You guys have got to tell us by the end of August who's going in. And we're still scrambling around. But what I will say, I agree with what you said there, Potsy. If there's no fans allowed at games and we have to have a cut-off, null and void it. Null and void it somehow, because for the reasons you said. Here's the solution I came up with a little while ago. If you get a date from the government, that the government say, look, from October, or let's say from September, we're gonna release the lockdown, whatever. You give the clubs a month to get ready, and you say, right, the season starts, for argument's sake, next season starts on the 1st of October. Beginning of September, you say to the teams, you're going to have some games, but we're not going to finish the season off because there's too many games. There's 92 games to go. It's too many. What we're going to do, we either, for the relegation spots, it's going to be Aston Villa versus what? Because Aston Villa, if they won their game in hand, could leapfrog Watford. Or the other option is just say the bottom 3, which is Norwich, Villa and Bournemouth, play the 3 teams above them. One-off game at Wembley. That's it. Neutral venue. The winners stay in the league. The losers go down. That's only 3 games. And for the 5th spot, Man United, Sheffield United. The winners get 5th spot. You play 4 games. You've pretty much sorted out everything you need to do for the main thing for me is relegation and the top spots. I think Chelsea would probably get the 4th spot. I think overall they've been better than United for me this season. And you saw that. And then for coming up, you just say Leeds and West Brom, you're up. Next 4 teams, we'll have some playoffs. You're not going to play a lot of games. And you'll get, promotion and relegation. So I don't want to see Leeds and West Brom and somebody else come up and nobody go down. I think that's ridiculous because you'll end up with an extra 6 games in the Premier League next season. And it's already going to be curtailed because we've got the Euros next summer. So whatever you do, it's going to be a mess. You might throw out the League Cup. You might throw out the FA Cup. But for most teams, League Cup and FA Cup is 2 or 3 games in a season. But you're definitely going to have 6 games extra league. I don't like the idea of having an expanded league. So for me, either null and void it. If you're not going to let fans go in, null and void it. Just get rid of it. I don't care. And this is the first time I've said that because I've always said play the season, finish it off somehow, whenever it is. Because when this all started, I remember saying back in March, it could take 12 months before we play football again. So that's why I said don't null and void it because we might end up finishing this season in 12 months' time. And the way things are going, it might even take longer. So, as I said, if there's no fans, null and void it. If you want to play just a few games, have those playoffs. 4 games in the Premier League, a few games in the Championship, same in Leagues 1 and 2. The minimum amount of games to keep the maximum number of teams happy. You'll still get teams unhappy. If you look at France did it. They got. I think I had some provision in the league rules for what you do when you abandon the season. But you still got clubs that want to take the league to court. You got Toulouse, who I think they're in the bottom 3. They've lost something like 14 out of the last 15 games, and they're turning around and say, "Well, you're taking our chance of escaping relegation away." You've got Lyon, who are out of the Europa League positions, but they're in the League Cup final. And the League Cup final winners get a Europa League spot. Same in their FA Cup. So you've got a few teams that will want to go to court. So I think that you've got to look at whichever way you finish it, because it's all about money. The only reason they want to finish the league is to get the money from Sky and BT. It's all about the money. You've got to find a solution that causes the fewest teams to want to take to court. If you say we're going to null and void it, no teams coming up, I bet you bottom dollar Leeds are going to say we're missing out on 250 million quid. West Brom will say the same, and they'll take you to court. And then the next 4 teams will say, well, we're missing out on a potential spot. We're in the playoffs. We want some compensation. And then the teams like I think Millwall are 1 point outside the top 6. What do they say? They say, well, we're missing out on a chance. Give us 50 million and we'll shut up. I think the more you give teams a chance, or teams to feel unhappy, or that it's all gone against them, the more likely that they're going to take it to court. And what you don't want, for instance, you say no teams are coming up. 6 months' time, Leeds win a court case. Premier League have to pay them £200 million and have to move them to the Premier League. The court could just say they need to go up. They deserve to, or whatever reason. And that just basically screws your whole next season. So you have to find a way that's satisfactory for as many teams as possible. You can't afford to go to court. Premier League could be out of pocket by £500 million. I don't think they can afford it.
Yeah, I think there's some great points there. And one thing is, nobody wants to be Boris Johnson at the moment. I certainly want to be in charge of the FA at the moment and make that decision, because that is going to be one hell of a brave decision that they've got to make there. But boys, we have run out of time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Ray, thank you as ever, mate, for coming back on.
Fantastic.
Please keep safe out there, mate. But thanks for coming on, buddy.
Cheers, mate. It's been brilliant.
Matt, thank you as ever, our Chelsea fan, buddy, coming back on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, when we play each other again, I'll be back.
It will, mate. It will. Let's hold hope that's sooner rather than later. And Josh, likewise of you, man. Thanks for coming on, bro. I know it was a bit last minute, and you was doing a lot of DIY. So cheers for jumping on, bro.
No worries, mate. Anytime.
Top man. Boys, it's been a pleasure. Please join us on Thursday night. We have got an Arsenal quiz. It is going to be at 7 o'clock, and we have got the regulars on. We have got lead judges, Mr. Harry Simu, Claude, our current champion, And of course, we have Dan Harry and Richard Butler from last time as well. So please come and join us on the Same Old Arsenal on Thursday at 7 o'clock. Until then, up the Arsenal.